All right, we're back again, and this is an interesting topic for us to talk about today because it's kind of a little bit of psychology and a little bit of business all wrapped up into one kind of really interesting package today. So today, it's our guest is our topic, I guess. We don't have a guest, it's just the two of us, but we're talking about is your personality type, and when we talk about personality type, we're sort of talking about Myers-Briggs, so psychology, and your business a good match? Because if you don't really know a lot about yourself, then it's very hard to figure out where should you go. You go to any kind of store or a mall and you see a map, and it always begins with you are here. So if you want to know where you're trying to get, you have to know where you are and who you are. And personality type is just one tool that we can use. So whether you're a job hunter, whether you're running your own business, or if you have a huge thriving business and you're trying to like hire employees, it's really important to understand personality types, right, Janet?
Oh, absolutely. And in particular, when I was in the corporate world that we would do this, there were actually a couple of times that two different companies that I was at that we used the Myers-Briggs test to work with our teams. And it was helpful because we did ourselves individually, and then we looked how we interrelated with each other. And I remember one of the big aha that I had was, that I'm the kind of person that always kind of like, just give me the debrief. Just start with where you want to go first, and then give me all the details. And the person that was on my team, that was my support person, needed it absolutely the reverse, and so wanted the details before I gave him the end. And it was a really good lesson for me to learn how to work with him, because, that's what I was always doing, was like, all right, here's what I want to have done, but I hadn't given him the details yet. And he was in overwhelm. And by learning and understanding the people that we're working with, is very important. And I think that also not only team members, but your clients.
Oh boy.
Like you want to be looking at your clients and how are you going to be relating to them. And if I am, it's kind of like, sometimes when we're in a meeting and we talk like this, or we talk back like that, depending upon mirroring, the people that we're in front of, like if we're doing an interview or something like that. So I think it's very important for us to understand ourselves as a team, like you and I, and we're going to talk about that. But also, how do you relate to your clients and your other team members so that everybody is working with the same goal in mind? Yep. So let's talk about the different personality types, and maybe you can tell them where they can go to get one, or we're going to tell them that at the end.
Well, we'll tell them that at the end, because we have to sell you on how it's good. And by the way, when I say sell, I'm just talking in the liberal sense. We're not selling anything here today.
No, we're not going to make any money.
And what's interesting is we're going to tell you where you can go and do this test 100% for free. So hang on to the end, because we're going to tell you where to go and how to do that. And it's probably one of the best ones that I've found out there. So, me, I like to Google things. So I'm always finding new tools. And this is a tool I found a while ago. And I will have you know that I have done my own personality test several times, and I always come out the same. And they actually say, don't do it too often. Like, you can do it every, say, about 6 months or something like that. But for the most part, this is your core values. This is not, you can't study and like, okay, I'm going to be now a different personality. It's like,
not like your ACT test.
No, it's like you lined up to come into this universe and somebody went and they put a stamp on you, and that's pretty much going to be you. What can change, though, is over time, things are on a sliding scale. So you might find, oh, I'm a little bit more of this than I was before, or you might see some nuances, but also too, learning how this works with other people is really important. So I'll kick it off by saying what I am. So I am, I always have to read it because I don't ever like to mix up. I'm what's called an INFJ. So it's kind of known as the advocate, the teacher. And that's the personality type that I am. And when you break it down, the coach. And each one of those letters, there's 4 letters, each stands for a different thing. So an I stands for introvert. You might say, Jillian is an introvert? Yes, Jillian is an introvert, because introversion is not about being shy, even though we sometimes equate introverted people with being quieter and extrovert people being sort of loud. That's not necessarily true. It's really about your energy and whether being with people drains you or fuels your fire. And with introverts, we get out there with people, but then we need lots of rebuilding time, but it's a scale. So nobody is 100% anything. So it's very interesting. Right now, I checked today, my introversion is at 88%. So that's where I am on the scale. So I'm not 100% introverted, but I'm definitely more introverted than extroverted. And that's what my sister is. She's extroverted, but I'll let her say her thing in a minute. And then the N, so that was the I. The N stands for being, whether you're somebody who does stuff in your head or you're sort of the hands-on observant person. So N is intuitive. So it doesn't mean I'm psychic or anything like that. It just means that I do my processing, my thinking by rolling things around in my brain, Googling stuff, as opposed to, observing the real world. F is for feeler. So I'm a real big feeler. I do things from a place of my heart as opposed to my head, which sometimes can get me in trouble. And then I'm a J, which stands for sort of are you a person who kind of wings it and does things, kind of flies and I'll figure all that out later. Or a J is somebody who's like, I got to have a plan detailed. And me, I'm a J with a capital J, really. I have to have everything laid out, organized. How will I get there? Where will I get there? Where will the map be? So that makes me very, very methodical. So I'm an INFJ. And Janet, you are almost the same as me, except for one letter, right?
Right. I'm the E. I'm the extrovert. So, and it's interesting. I'd have to go back and to see how much I am on the extrovert scale, as opposed to, I didn't know that. I guess I didn't study it enough to know that I might not be 100% extrovert, because I don't think I'm 100% of an extrovert, but I'm probably pretty good. And I do gain energy from being out with people. I like my alone time, so don't get me wrong. I do like that, but I do feel that I'm fueled by being outside with people. So I have to have that connection with other people. That's very important to me. So that's interesting for you and I, because we're partners. And so 3 of our 4 are identical. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
I actually think it's good, because I think that I can tell you quite honestly that there's some letters that I think are key and core to how you deal with other people. And I can tell you straight off the bat, I have an expression I use quite fondly where I'll say, oh, that's why I'm having an issue with that person. They're a P. And it's very frustrating for me. I'm great to have like a P friend who we do things with, but they're the kind who sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm coming to town and we'll do dinner. And I'm like, what day, what time, when will we do dinner? Where will we go for dinner? That's not it. And it's not a judgment on them. It's so difficult for me. So then I have to realize, well, then maybe I'm the one that will make the reservation. I'll pick the place, because they probably could care less. They're more interested in being with me, but I'm like, I've got to have it all written down. So I think it's good to have these things, because if you were in a partnership, like, to be quite honest, you and I work well together because we're both J's. So we are time managed. We fill out the details. If you were just like, oh, I'm just going to see this client, this client, this client, and it wasn't on the calendar, it would fall apart. So do you see how that has to be a part? Put 2 P's together, that could be a really tough one. So maybe you need to have the balance of you're both J's, and maybe one's a J, one's a P, but 2 P's together, it could be a little bit of a problem. So same with extroverts, 2 extroverts together, that could be a dance.
Yeah. You'd never get a chance to talk. Or I would never get a chance to talk. It's a good thing you're an introvert. Well,
right.
it's interesting. So you're a coach, and I'm considered the protagonist. So I'm your hero.
There we go. There we go. And should I actually display? We had a let me see if I
Yeah.
can pull it up. Okay. So let me
Oh,
go.
and yeah, and I wanted to just say something interesting before you do that, because I was looking at these. All right, no, do yours first, because then I'll get to this. Why I wanted to make a point about two people in particular in this.
So I'll go ahead.
This is,
I'll go ahead and I'll put this link later into the show notes so that if anybody wants to go back and look at this. But this is a really good article on your best personality types for business, and then using this to match your career. So you kind of go through, and there's, of course, Elon Musk, and he is the scientist, which is just kind of and I love this because it gives you that code so you can see that he's also an introvert. He's intuitive, so he's the thinker, and he's also the thinker, and he's a J, so he's the kind that's getting stuff done. So again, you get to see these different codes broken down. So this applies to Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Walter White from Breaking Bad.
And so they're more thinkers than feelers.
Exactly.
So that's a big difference. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Keep going. What else we got going here?
Okay. So then we have INTP, which is the professor. So think of Bill Gates, Larry Page. Larry Page invented Google. He's one of the Google founders. And then Doc Brown from Back to the Future. I like that they actually put in a character from a movie because sometimes we know a lot about people because they are characters in movies. So I think that's kind of interesting. So that is known as the professor. So,
and Bill Gates is like very methodical. I watched him. He was interviewed the other night on CNN, and you could just, hear the way that, the way he does think. And then here we have the boss, and so here's Steve Jobs.
Right.
So was Bill Gates the introvert?
Yes. Let's just go back.
Okay. So all right, so he's an introvert, which you could tell by watching him on CNN the other night. He is totally an introvert. He's not gregarious by any means whatsoever.
Exactly. And it's interesting because he's a P at the end and not the J. So obviously, he's probably, he had to have other people doing the Microsoft stuff, or else it never would have got out there.
He was just the brains. He was the brains, and he needed somebody else to put it all together.
The true professor. But then compare it to Steve Jobs, who is the extrovert. Do we not talk about how Steve Jobs, when he used to do those, Apple releases where he, show you, the iPod and the cell phone and the MacBook Pro, whenever he would do all those, it was the epitome of public speaking skills because we were all like this, on the edge of our seats listening to him. So he just really knew how to do it. But again, look, he ends with the J. He was the one really getting stuff out there. So he was just awesome. So Steve Jobs, Steve Martin, the comic, which is kind of funny. And then I love this, President Frank Underwood from
Francis. And it's so funny. I am finally watching the House of Cards, and I'm like, absolutely, it's a fascinating story. I don't know what took me so long to actually watch it, but like I'm kind of hooked on it.
Oh yeah.
I'm addicted to watching the show, so I'm kind of like catching up on all the different episodes. But I think that's interesting that and Francis has that extroverted personality. It had to be all about him.
Absolutely.
So not to say that all extroverts, but what was with the P? So like, what would make him different than?
Okay, so
because he's a thinker. He's a thinker.
He's a thinker, and he's J. And J are the detailed people that are actually going to take it and get all those nuts and bolts. They're that's how they work. They're
not feeling, so they don't have maybe that caring gene, so to speak. So that kind of
That's more of the T. Well, the T is for being the thinker versus the feeler. So you're using your brain instead of your heart. But the J is kind of how you work in the world in terms of like, how are you getting things out there? Are you the person who is the idea man? That's more of the P, where the J person, they're gonna see through that everything gets done. Every I is dotted and the T's are crossed. That's the J people.
Right.
So, and again, you can see management consultant, sales copyright, public speaking. Like we can see that with Steve Jobs, right? Just the epitome of that. Right. So then you have what's known as the debater. So that's the ENTP, and they're showing us it's Walt Disney, Steve Wozniak, if I can remember who that was. I'm thinking it was
that's Steve. No, that's Steve Jobs' partner, and that's what I was going to tell you.
There we go. Good partnership.
There was a teammate, and they were both extroverted, so they probably had some issues there. But they both had a different ending.
Exactly. Which is
the J, the J and the P.
And look at this. ENTPs love to question things and come up with original, innovative ideas. And truly, isn't that what Apple was all about? It was, what was their motto? Think different. And yet it probably needed the two of them to get it out into the marketplace, because Steve Jobs was the one that was out there. I don't even know if I even would recognize Steve Wozniak.
Probably only if you'd watched the documentary, the story, and then you would have seen him in there. But you're right. He was, even though he was an extrovert, he was secondary to Steve Jobs. So, Steve Jobs was always the one that was up on the stage. So anyways, and Steve Wozniak's still alive.
Right. And now we know two extroverts can work, because we have Steve Jobs and the two Steves. It worked together. So that's kind of interesting. So again,
one stood out more than the other, though.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So you have to have that. So there we go. That's the ENTP. Also, Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. I didn't like that character, but anyways, he was a good character. Okay, this is who I am. INFJ, the coach, and the coach, Bill Drayton, Martin Luther King Jr., and Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. Yay! I love Jon Snow. He was my favorite character. Now I know he was an INFJ. No wonder I liked him. Oh, so nothing, Jon Snow.
And it's interesting. We looked up who Bill Drayton was, because
we didn't know
we didn't know who that was. But he's a very important person in social media. So, and has lots of money. He's in Wikipedia. So.
Exactly. And then it says business ideas, coaching of any type, social enterprises, tutoring and education. So now you kind of know why I make all those videos, because it's just in my nature. It's my personality. Okay. So then we have the lovely Oprah Winfrey showing up as the INFP, which is known as the optimist. So we see Oprah Winfrey, Tom Hiddleston, and I don't know Tom Hiddleston. We'll have to look him up. And then Frodo Baggins from Lord of the Rings. Oh, I love Frodo. Frodo was good. Yeah. And wasn't he sort of the hero, the hero of the story going off? So coaching of any kind, graphic design, social media marketing. So that's a good one. And then here's your personality type, Janet. You're in good stead with Barack Obama here, the hero. So we've got Barack Obama, John Cusack. He was that guy in Say Anything, remember, with the radio, holding up the radio. And then Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. So that was, I kind of go back and remember that movie. I haven't seen that one in a long time. So it says the hero, coaching of any kind. So again, you can see I'm doing coaching, you're doing coaching, but it's different. So it says tutoring, brand consultants, sales copywriters. And so again, you get that. And then here is the ENFP, which is known as the speaker. So we've got Ariana Huffington, we've got Russell Brand, Michael Scott of The Office. Is that Michael? Michael, he's the head guy, right? He's his name escapes me, but You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's the main guy from The Office, which is
Steve Carroll. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, there we go. And I love this. Life of the party. Nah, you are the party. So business coaching, freelance writing, event planning. So then we move on to ISTJ, which is the soldier. I think that's what my husband is. Peter Thiel, Angela Merkel, Eddard Stark. Oh, he was the one that loses it quickly in the Game of Thrones. Spoiler. Great. Let's see. They're good for any idea that leverages your specific skill. So that's interesting. I think that they are very known as being very methodical too. So again, their skill set is very straightforward. And then we have ISFJ, the doctor. We've got Jimmy Carter here, Johnny Carson. Probably the younger people don't even know who Johnny Carson is. He ran the Tonight Show. And Dr. John Watson of Sherlock Holmes. Oh, that's interesting. And so let's see. These folks are any service business such as coaching, consulting, and tutoring. And then we'll skip along. And then this is probably ultimate business person is the ESTJ, the CEO. And of course, you've got Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame, Frank Sinatra, and Dwight from The Office. He was a funny character. And again, financial consulting, management consulting, sales, and copywriter. And then ESFJ, the Letterman, and Andrew Carnegie, Bill Clinton, Rachel Green from Friends. And again, service businesses such as event planning, consulting, and tutoring. And then we get down to the beginning. I think we're almost at the end. ISTP, which is the Da Vinci. And so this is the Richard Brantons, Bear Grylls. I don't know who that is. And then John McClane from Die Hard. Oh gosh, he was like forever coming up with a way to take down those terrorists.
Well, and look at Richard Branson. I mean,
Yes.
He's just amazing in everything that he's invented, and his fabulous island, and all the very good gurus that all get to spend time with Richard on his island.
Exactly.
So inventive.
And I think that's the thing. They're so creative. The ISTPs are so creative. And then at the very, I think we're at the end, the ISFP is the artist. And so it shows Johnny Ive, Michael Jackson, and Ewan. Oh boy, I forgot that character in The Lord of the Rings. Graphic design, freelance photography, and freelance writing. And then, oh my gosh, it keeps going. Okay, ESTP is the hustler. So we've got Thomas Edison, Nicholas Scarzazzi, Seth Grayson of House of Cards. Okay, I don't remember. Was he the Secret Service guy? And
no, he was the, because I'm watching the show. He was the press secretary. He's the one who got up on the stage every day. And then you're, and I don't want to be a spoiler, but then he took care of things. He had to get up and be the spokesperson.
Exactly. So sales copywriting, sales consulting, pretty much anything in sales. I guess selling the president would be one thing. And then ESFP is the entertainer. And they've got Mark Cuban, Larry Ellison, Fred and George Weasley of Harry Potter fame. And then they go through, again, coach of all types. Pretty much you can be a coach for any personality type, And so then it goes from there back to, so I'm going to stop sharing that and come back. So that just kind of gives you a rundown of all the different personality types. And you can kind of get a feel for, how they fit into, I kind of laugh that coaching, it's kind of like coaching is like a base for so many different personality types. Is kind of interesting, except for maybe some of those real creatives. It's not a good fit.
But it also, you might not have your client do this Myers-Briggs test before you meet with them. However, after a while, if you study these after a while, and if you then map them to somebody that we've just seen, like the Steve Jobs or everybody else, you could actually see maybe how your client fits in there. so that when you're coaching them, you can be a better, more effective coach simply because you'll understand where they're coming from. First of all,
Exactly.
you'll see how to talk to them depending
Yep.
upon whether they're an introvert and an extrovert. Because sometimes I realize as an extrovert, I want to be all bubbly with everybody. And sometimes as I get on the call with a client and I realize that they're an introvert, I have to tone myself down.
Yep.
And that's when the mirroring comes in, so
Absolutely.
that I don't become overwhelming to them.
So we've got a couple questions or a couple comments. So Catherine Ledger says, fab discussion, Gillian and Janet. I love the Myers-Briggs personality test. And I also come out the same. I found it a complete game changer, especially realizing introvert is not a negative trait. And that's so true. And she's an INFJ. I would have known that.
Like you.
I would have known that.
See?
And look at her next comment is, I'm also an INFJ. And then Curtis Gregor says, so what happens when you are almost balanced across the 4 different types? I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to actually be balanced. There's going to be something that sets you over the edge. And this is probably a good time for me to like flip out and show where you can actually, so let me do that, where you can
take the test.
Yeah, where you can actually take the test. So let me share my screen.
You're just going to be 1, depending upon how you answered the questions.
That's right.
It's going to come it up for you. And you need to answer it, not what you think you should say, but what you truly believe. Because otherwise you're not going to score yourself right.
Exactly. So this is the website. It's called 16personalities.com. When you take the test, this doesn't cost you anything at all to take the test. And as you go through, it will give you a rundown. And here's where you begin to see, here is how it breaks it down. Like introverted, 88%, intuitive, 67%, feeling. It breaks down these on the scale so you can see, oh, exactly how introverted am I? I could have been like 51. So, same with you, Janet, your extroversion might not be really, really high. If it's just 51, then you're extroverted, but you're not as extroverted as somebody who's like 88 or 99 type of thing. So It's really interesting to see that. And when you come through here, you get like a full profile. If I click on here, it will actually, I hope you'll come along with me because before it didn't do that. Did it come along? Yeah. Are you seeing the whole, does it say introduction?
Yeah. But before you go there, can I stop you for a second? Can we go back to that one? Because I think this might help answer Curtis's question when he says he's almost balanced. Right. So if he did a test and he finds that he's only like 55 or only 60% on, like, you have one where you're 67% on energy. So that means, you have some that's not. So I think it would be good to do a deeper dive to see, like, if you're low on one, what is the opposite for you? And then see how that relates to you. So that might require you just doing a little deeper dive into this, as opposed to just looking at the INFJ or ENFJ or whatever. So look, I think this part right here is important. And I'm going to go back and look at mine now.
And you can retake the test, and they keep your test results from the prior test. So you can kind of see how you change over time. And the way the test is done is it's simply a series of questions, and you just answer the questions, and then they do all the analysis, and then they send you this result in an email, and then you come here to the website, you log in, and then you can see this. Anytime you want to see this, you have access to this. So this is really cool. And if you want to take a deeper dive, and you'll see that when you actually go through, I'll go back up now and I will click on here. Okay, so you're following along. You see advocate personality, INFJ up in the top here.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So when you see this, you'll see that you get this whole write-up, your strengths, your weaknesses, your romantic relationships, your friendship, your parenthood, your career paths, workplace habits, conclusions. And if you want, and again, here's your results kind of done in a quantifiable, mathematical
Like a
analytics
graph,
on the side,
yeah.
on the side for those people that like that kind of stuff. And you can actually, if you want to take an even deeper dive, you can pay, and they have all sorts of, kind of go to another level. But I'm telling you,
Right.
you're going to read this and you're just going to say, wow, this is just so me on so many levels. And you can just, go through and you can learn so much about yourself. Start off with the strengths and weaknesses, where you begin to see what is it that, this is great if you were job hunting and you were preparing for an interview, or, if you're doing your copy for your website, if you're a business owner, or, you want to talk about, well, how do I attract my ideal client? What kind of content should I be putting out on LinkedIn? Go with your strengths, because you'll see this is what's good for you to talk about. And then think about, well, what are your weaknesses? What are your weaknesses? Like, look at mine, sensitive to criticism. I did a video last week, which was called, haters are going to hate, because I'm sensitive to criticism, but I'm not the only one. So that video actually resonated for a lot of people, because it was hard. It's hard to get criticized. So these are just really good to go through, and you get such a great bird's eye view. And then you can find out, oh boy, am I good with my spouse or not good with my spouse? Or you can go through and look at your career path and your workplace habits. Really great things here. And if you come in here where it says tools and assessments, and you click on career, I just learned about this literally like just days ago, but you come through here, and these ones are all, you have to pay for these like little tests. But if you come through here, they actually have this one is free and this one is free. And it is a type guesser. And what you can do is you can click on this, and this would be awesome for trying to figure out your coworkers or your clients, potential clients. And you can come through here, and it says, if you want to figure out if somebody, what they are, you can use this tool to make an educated guess with just answering a couple of questions. And then you just go through, and it's like, when your colleague takes a break, how likely are they to be joining other people in the break room or go near the water cooler for a chat? So you could go through here and assess somebody and get an idea of maybe where they fall in. And then that would give you the tools to maybe go out and see them in a different light, not necessarily change your behavior, but it helps you understand how people tick. So great stuff. Great stuff.
I think that's terrific. Yeah. And I know that when we did it for our corporation, obviously we had the paid version because we were matched up so that we could see how to relate to somebody. So I knew how to be with my internal person. And so that made a huge difference. And then my manager, so
yes,
that was all really, really good. And I remember I did one once for my own team. I think I had at that point, about 15 people on my team. And we actually had a coaching session afterwards.
Oh,
where, we had a coaching session where somebody came in and sat down with us and went through it all with us, so that when my salespeople were out in the field, how they needed to behave and be out there, and then how I needed to relate to them so that I could be a better supervisor of them. So it was pretty incredible. But I think, even just the free version, this gives us so much information to help us be better at whatever we do. And aren't we all looking for things to just help us do our jobs, do our business, make money, be successful? That much more. We're all looking for those great tips.
And when you know more about yourself, you can be a better you. It helps you, again, going back to that map analogy where you're standing at the mall trying to figure out, how do I get to that store? You have to know where you are before you can make that path. So if you're going to try and make any changes, start a business, get a job, whatever, knowing who you are and where you are at this very moment helps you move towards becoming the best you can be.
Well, and we do that in our own coaching, when we use our little roadmaps and our GPSs, we always tell people, we're going to meet you where you are today and we're going to help you where you want to go. So we do that very same thing. So probably need to do a little bit of that kind of ideas when we meet with them. So we know what we're dealing with. So
exactly.
yeah.
And I think for anybody who is doing coaching, no matter who you're doing your coaching with, might be a good idea to do something like this and give it to your coach so that they know you before you even get going. So that could be a good thing as well, because it will help them understand how you tick as well.
I love it. I love it.
Good stuff.
Well, we're always coming up with some new ideas, and I just love that. We're going to have a guest next week. Ooh, I'm excited to have her. So we'll talk about her next week. We're not going to spill the beans today. But, we try to have, some where it's just Gillian and I, and some where we have some guests. And we love having our guests last week. We loved having Jeff. That was awesome. Boy, did we get a lot of comments about having Jeff on our show. That was
And he's coming back.
Incredible.
He's coming back. So that's
everybody says we're rating.
I think we've already got him booked for 2 talks. We got him, and Catherine's we're talking about Catherine Ledger coming on, and she's going to talk about storytelling. So, and how to use that in your business. And so, and if anybody else wants to be a guest, please just get in touch with us. We're happy to have anybody that comes in and wants to be part of our chit chat. So this is great stuff. So we probably should wrap it up, and we'll be back again next week with a guest, mystery guest.
See you then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.